Hello, my name is Peggy Joffe, and I've been asked, and it is my privilege and pleasure to tell you a little bit about the history of the bridge, about my dad, who is the founder of the bridge, and about the people and the mission of the bridge. I'm sitting here on my front porch in New Orleans during the pandemic of Corona 19. I've been in the stay at home order now going on a month. And it made me think about how lucky we are to have a home to be sheltered in and to have a safe and healthy place to be during this pandemic, and how many people are not as fortunate, and especially those that were serviced by the bridge. So I'd like to start with four different subjects. First, the backdrop of what was going on 45 or 50 years ago when the bridge was founded. Second, a little bit about my dad. Third, about the bridge, and then a takeaway or lessons we can learn from that. So first of all, let's start with the backdrop 45 or 50 years ago. The mindset at that time was a runaway, was a throwaway. If someone was homeless, they were homeless because of their own fault, because they were a drug addict or an alcoholic or just, a throwaway from society. We were on the cutting edge when the bridge got started of actually treating, for example, a drug addict as opposed to simply jailing them. At that time, children were to be seen and not heard. I don't know if you've heard that expression. They had no rights, they had no advocates, they had few resources or services available to them. The time in Miami back then, I picked strawberries and worked at a chicken farm on Miller Road and 112th. That was pretty much the end of it. Crandon Park Zoo was in Crandon Park. There was no FIU, there was no Homestead, there was a tiny little area out there called Sweetwater. It was a very different environment, and the idea of actually helping a drug addict, a runaway, was unique. And it's not that way anymore, thank goodness. So that's the backdrop of when the bridge was started. And yes, there would be no bridge without my dad, Dick Moran, but there were many, many other people, including my mother who worked at the bridge, including many, many people who worked because of the mission, because of the calling, because of the need, not because of the money. Your reward was just the hope that maybe you would do some good and see some change. My dad's philosophy was that everybody had worth, and that rehabilitation, not incarceration. And I think that was unique in that time. My dad did work as a probation officer. He worked as a professor in criminal justice and social work. He worked in academic as a dean at Berry and at Biscayne. He taught at Miami-Dade. He was a truancy officer. He was a director of the youth hall. He started a crisis intervention suicide hotline back in the day. That was very, cutting edge. And he also was instrumental in working with Dr. Ben Shepherd to start the methadone clinic. But the bridge was his baby. He dedicated his life to the bridge. My mother worked at the bridge. I worked at the bridge. I can remember times when we would go down and carve a turkey at the bridge on Thanksgiving Day before we would have an event with our family. The bridge was my dad's first baby, even though he had 5 children that were all born before the bridge started. But it was definitely his baby and his heart and his calling.